Let's start with a check of the top headlines this hour. Israel has recognized Somaliland, a breakaway region of Somalia, as an independent and sovereign state, making Israel the first country to do so. Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, holds its first ever direct elections in over 5 decades. More than 50,000 voters cast ballots. The national polls are expected in 2026. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he has planned to meet the US President Donald Trump on Sunday to discuss territory and security issues amid the negotiations on Russia-Ukraine truce. 5 people have been killed in an explosion at Al Alawite mosque in the Syrian capital of Homs. As per the Syrian Health Ministry, 21 people have been wounded in the explosion. A Palestinian assailant reportedly ran over a man and stabbed a woman, killing the both in the northern Israel. The assailant was shot and wounded by a civilian at the scene and was later taken to the hospital. Yemen's main southern separatist group has rejected a Saudi call for its forces to withdraw from areas it seized earlier in December, saying it will continue securing the eastern provinces of Hadramaut and Mahara. India has raised alarm over rising attacks on minorities in Bangladesh, citing nearly 2,900 incidents against Hindus and others. Concerns grew after a Hindu man was killed by a mob. Bangladesh condemned the act and made arrests. The United States says it carries out a strike against Islamic State militants in northwest Nigeria at the request of the Nigerian government. President Donald Trump and the US military say the group is accused of targeting Christians in the region. And we have some fresh news coming in. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to meet US President Donald Trump on 28th of December in Florida as efforts intensify to end Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Kyiv says plans for the meeting are in place, with talks expected to focus on territory and security guarantees. Zelensky says the Defense Minister Rustem Umerov has held contacts with US officials and confirmed the highest level meeting has been agreed. Both leaders are working to align on a 20-point peace plan. While much of the plan is agreed, key issues remain unresolved, including Kyiv's firm opposition to territorial concessions in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. Now I invite David Johnston, who's an American author and professor, and joins us from New York. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnston, for joining me in this discussion here. Professor, how do you see this meeting now taking place? We've learned that before the end of the year, there are efforts being made to arrive at some progress as far as the peace process is concerned, and there are also talks of, in fact, Zelensky has made that statement where he said that the new draft actually includes new formats of talks, which might signal for a three-party talk. Do you see Russia being okay with that and good outcome coming out of a tripartite talk, if that is going to be the case?
I'm sorry. I think Russia is going to continue to do what it's been doing, which is delay and say we'll talk and we'll meet, all because it can then keep up military pressure on Ukraine. But I do think there's been some significant progress here that has been largely missed in the news. Namely that Donald Trump's administration put forth a 28-point plan that was basically written by the Kremlin, though they claimed it as an American plan. That plan has now been revised. There are about 20 points in it. It no longer is just everything Vladimir Putin wished for. And I think that's a sign of significant progress, because Zelensky has to keep Donald Trump in the corral. He's got to keep him on the ranch. And by making some concessions, especially if they don't expect the Russians to go along, it helps Zelensky avoid the worst thing that could happen, which is alienating Trump.
Right. And, with the talks now, as far as the security guarantees are concerned, European Union has not really given any security guarantees to Ukraine. So do you see the United States doing that?
Well, the United States already has an obligation to the security of Ukraine under the 1994 treaty signed by the Kremlin, in which Russia said that if you allow us to take the nuclear weapons that are in Ukraine back to Russia, we promise to never invade Ukraine. And the U.S. said, and we promise that we will defend Ukraine and protect it. I think what we're moving toward is a demilitarized zone, as you have in North and South Korea, setting up a border area with perhaps UN peacekeeper troops as a security guarantee to Ukraine.
Do you think it will be helpful if this dialogue is instead held at a, UN forum, because all the key stakeholders are member states?
That would be one of the better outcomes we could have, is to have the United Nations at the center of this. But by and large, I think that Vladimir Putin's game here is simply to say, oh yeah, we'll talk, oh glad to talk, yes, here's a peace plan, without any intention of stopping short of what he wants, which is the complete conquest of Ukraine.
All right, so why do you think that's not happened so far? Is it only because of the Russian president's point of view?
Well, Putin has managed to some degree to alienate Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump basically has vowed fealty to him. He said he trusts Vladimir Putin at his word, but he doesn't trust the American intelligence agencies, for example. And so Putin, by not settling the war, by making Trump look foolish, because Trump claimed that he would have settled the war in one day after winning the election 13 months ago, and of course the war is still going on, Trump is embarrassed and has not achieved his goal. So that's actually been one of the biggest things that's helped the Ukrainians maintain a line into the Trump White House, even though on an ideological basis, Donald Trump is very much aligned with dictators. He is he sees himself as a dictator. He has essentially said that. I've been warning people about that for 14 years. And we're seeing here that Putin will keep talking, but he hasn't agreed to anything. He wants territory he hasn't even been able to occupy. And by the way, the latest military reports, including by Russian military bloggers, suggest that the Russians are being pushed back and are running into increasing problems because, of course, one of the lessons we've learned from all of this is that the Russian army is frankly not very good.
All right. Well, talking about Trump being the dictator, I requested to stay on as we move ahead to cover some news now coming in from Venezuela. Viewers, Venezuela has freed 99 people jailed after last year's election protests, although the rights groups believe that the figure is lower despite growing pressure from Washington on President Nicolas Maduro. This comes as hundreds of people in Venezuela's capital, Caracas, and other parts of the South American nation took to the streets after the July 2024 presidential election, banging pots and pans and blocking roads, demanding the opposition be declared victors. And at least 2,000 people were arrested in post-election violence. Meanwhile, the U.S. has amassed a huge military presence in the Caribbean, killing dozens in strikes on boats near the Venezuelan coast. It alleges were carrying drugs and seized 2 fully loaded Venezuelan crude oil tankers. President Trump has also said that it would be smart for Maduro to leave power. All right, I invite Professor Johnston to join me back in the discussion here. This, of course, is a welcome move that Venezuela has freed 99 people that were under detention. But how much of it do you think is really due to pressure from Trump? We were talking about how he, in your opinion, is a dictator.
Well,
in the oldest democracy in the world. So that is, of course, ironical to say the least. Please do expand on your point here.
Well, first of all, many leading Americans have come around to my point of view that Trump sees himself as a dictator. He's behaving like a dictator. He has asserted that he has all power as president, which is not true under the Constitution. But Trump has said, I have an Article 2, that's the irrelevant portion of the American Constitution, that lets me do anything I want. That's a dictatorial statement. Now, the release of the prisoners took place on Christmas Day in a country that is 85% Catholic, or at least nominally Catholic. So we shouldn't be surprised in the least that Maduro, who is clearly himself a dictator and there's good reason to believe lost the previous election and is only in office because of not properly counting ballots, that he would release prisoners on Christmas Day. He still has at least 1,000 people who are being held as political prisoners in his country. But by releasing these 99, it helps him mollify the population to get people to say, well, if we just go along with him, he'll release more people. So that's a tactically smart move, but without a doubt, given the armada that Donald Trump has off the coast of Venezuela, Maduro has to be thinking about how this plays in the Trump White House.
Sure. Do you also think this is somehow going to soften Maduro's rule, his dictatorial approach in Venezuela?
I would not expect that at all. I would expect that Maduro is going to, like most dictators, engage in a game of fear and rewards, carrots and sticks. He needs to maintain his support among the military to keep his position, and he needs to be wary of an invasion by Donald Trump, which would certainly end his presidency. I don't think anybody in the world expects that the Venezuelan military would stand up for 2 seconds against the American military if the United States were to invade, and which, by the way, Donald Trump has no legal authority to do.
Sure, definitely. Well, for now, thank you very much, Professor Johnston, for joining in this discussion. And viewers, moving ahead now, let's tell you that Israel has recognized Somaliland, a breakaway region of Somalia, as an independent and sovereign state. This has made Israel the first country to do so. The historic accord marks a significant breakthrough for Somaliland, which declared independence from Somalia in 1991, but has failed to gain recognition from any United Nations member state. Foreign Minister Gideon Saar announced that Israel and the Republic of Somaliland had signed an agreement established full diplomatic relations, including the appointment of ambassadors and the opening of embassies in both countries. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu described the new friendship as seminal and historic in a video call with Somaliland President Abdirahman Mohammed Abdullahi, inviting him to visit Israel and calling it a great opportunity to expand their partnership. Saar said the agreement followed a year of extensive dialogue between the two governments and was based on a joint decision by Netanyahu and Abdullahi. Now I invite Shaul Satka, who is a political commentator, to join me in this discussion here.
Hello.
Hi Shaul, thanks for joining me. Shaul, what's in the interest of Israel to recognize Somaliland, and what do you think it has gained from this recognition?
My assumption is that the reason Israel is very interested in Somaliland, and it has been actually for decades at this point, is that the location is critical for Israel's security, as it protects the entrance to the Red Sea and to the straits that Israel requires for its access to Asia. If Israel has friends in Somaliland, then it has friends opposite Yemen. The links between Somaliland and Israel and the UAE and the USA are quite strong. And it could be that what we're seeing here is the beginning of a process, that just as the Saudis, when they wanted to begin the process of normalization with Israel, did not do so themselves, but instead had the UAE and Bahrain do so. It could be that what we're seeing here is a similar process by the Trump administration. The Trump administration almost certainly wants to see Somaliland independent, since Somaliland is a complete basket case of which almost nothing useful remains except for Somaliland. And it could well be that this is the plan, that in a period of time not too far off, that Somaliland will be also recognized by the United States and effectively at that point become a bona fide nation among the family of nations.
Also take us through some of the key pillars of the relationship between the two countries now. How are the countries defining their partnership as of now?
It's unclear. There's a lot that is unknown right now. There were rumors going back a few months that Somaliland was expected to take some of the refugees who are currently living in tents in the Gaza Strip, who, to be honest, have no prospect of being rehoused in permanent buildings this side of 2030 at least. So at least to temporarily take some of the refugees to allow them to have a better life in the interim. That was part of the process. There are also, it's known, or alleged anyway, that Israel has secretive bases in Somaliland. If it does, which is not confirmed, it would give Israel far greater reach and various opportunities to refuel and so on if it had access to Somali territory. That could also be it. It's unclear. It's unclear. Certainly, the more relations that Israel has with friendly Arab and Muslim nations, the better for Israel. And Somaliland was easy pickings because Somaliland has certainly a lot to gain from its relationship with Israel. The first thing it has gained is it gained its first piece of international recognition on a formal basis. Israel is the first country to recognize Somaliland.
All right, sure. We'll watch out how that partnership evolves with time and how the other players involved in the area react and the nations worldwide. But for now, thank you very much, Shaul, for joining me in this discussion. And some breaking news now coming in, viewers. A drone attack has killed 2 Chadian soldiers at a military camp near the Sudan border before dawn. According to Prefect of the department, Hamid Hassan, 2 people were killed and 1 seriously injured in the attack on the border town of Tine, although it is not immediately clear who is behind the strike. As per a Chadian military intelligence officer, the drone came from Sudan, but it was unclear whether it was launched by the country's army or paramilitary rapid support force. And now moving ahead, viewers, let's track some news now coming in from Malaysia. A Malaysian court has jailed former Prime Minister Najib Razak for another 15 years after convicting him in a new graft case linked to the massive 1MDB scandal. The judge found Najib guilty on multiple counts of abuse of power and money laundering, sentencing him to concurrent prison terms and imposing a multi-billion-dollar fine. Najib has already been in prison since 2022 over an earlier 1MDB conviction. Prosecutors say billions of dollars were stolen from the state funds during his time in office, while Najib has denied any wrongdoing. After the verdict, Najib urged Malaysians to remain calm and said he would continue his fight through legal channels, with his lawyers confirming an appeal. Let's hear him.
So, while we are disappointed, we are more agitated, not in a bad way, but agitated to do better in the appeal, because by Monday, we will file the appeal. I'm looking forward for this case to go to the Court of Appeal, because every single point the judge had dealt with has been dealt with in a manner where our cross-examination of the witnesses, where our defense have not been examined by the judge. I can say this with all the clarity. I'm not saying this immediately after a battle and we come out not thinking straight. No. Throughout the reading of the judgment, we kept on being disappointed with every point that was handed down by the learned judge.
Joining me in this discussion is Ambassador Gauri Shankar Gupta. He is a former Indian diplomat and joins us from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador Gupta, for joining me in this discussion. Was this long time coming, the conviction that has come for Najib Razak?
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me. You know, Najib Razak has been involved in many scandals over, you know, many corruption scandals during his tenure. This is one of the biggest financial scandal known to the world. It involves 700 million US dollars, which were, according to the judgment, which was pocketed by him directly or indirectly in his personal account. And during the raids, lot of properties were confiscated, which was supposed to be belonging to Najib Razak. Now, obviously, he is contesting that plea, but the court has taken a decision. In fact, there was a stage in 2016 when the U.S. had also described this scandal as one of the largest financial scandal in bribery scandal in the world. So obviously, this project, which was a developmental project, amounting to I believe 2 to 3 billion US dollar. That project was mishandled, or corrupt practices were indulged, and about $700 million were taken away. And he's already serving, in prison for some other corruption cases. Now, this will be running concurrent with that, 15 years of imprisonment. So I suppose this the world will take it in the spirit. The court has given a judgment. He has right to appeal, and I'm sure he will appeal against it. But so far as his career is concerned, that is already finished. And he had to, in fact, when this scandal came out, there were a lot of demand for his resignation, but he did not resign. But then Mahathir Mohamad defeated him in 2018,
Yeah.
and after the next election, the current Prime Minister Ibrahim took over. So this is the status, and I suppose this is not taken as a surprise by anybody, because there are previous examples of corrupt practices indulged by Rajak.
Uh, Ambassador Gupta, would you also say that the Malaysian judiciary, has passed what many were saying was a test for it as far as the 1MDB scandal was concerned with this conviction?
Yes, I suppose Malaysian judiciary must have passed through turbulent time. There must have been internal thinking what to do, because charges of such a huge corruption against a former prime minister is not easy.
Yeah.
And then the judges who pass a judgment, they also pass through very turbulent time in writing such a judgment. So I'm sure that has been overcome by the judges, and I don't expect any political angle as of now, because the two prime ministers, Mahathir Mohamad and the current prime minister, both are involved, and none of voices have been heard against this judgment so far. So I presume this is a neat judgment. This is based on the evidence. This is not a political pronouncement by the judiciary.
Ambassador Gupta has also been fined $3.3 billion. Do you see him furnishing that amount?
I don't think he would be able to furnish that amount, but some of his assets have been frozen, or this has been seized by the state, and that may amount to about 200 to 300 million dollars. So those will be obviously seized by the state, but I don't think he would be able to compensate the state with such a huge loss. But I don't know whether the actual amount involved of bribery is $2 billion or it is only $700 million. To my knowledge, it is about $700 million,
Yeah.
out of which about $300 million has been seized from his assets.
All right. Well, sure. Thank you very much, Ambassador Gupta, for joining me in this discussion. And viewers, there's some more breaking news now coming in. A Moscow court has sentenced a former Russian diplomat to 12 years in a maximum security penal colony for treason. Russia's security service says Arseny Konovalov sold classified information to U.S. intelligence while posted in the United States. The Federal Security Service says Konovalov, a foreign ministry employee, passed secrets for money during a long-term assignment. Authorities have not disclosed what information was shared or which US agency was involved. Moving ahead now, the White House will reveal new details about President Trump's planned $400 million East Wing ballroom during a hearing next month in January. The ballroom, which Trump says will be larger than the White House itself, has faced strong opposition. Preservationists are suing to stop the project, arguing it would dwarf the historic building. Democratic lawmakers have also criticized it as an abuse of power and are investigating which donors are supporting the plan. The National Capital Planning Commission, overseeing the project, will host an information session on January 8. The former East Wing was demolished in October with little public notice. A formal review of the project will take place this spring, allowing the public to submit comments. The judge in the case earlier this month declined to issue a temporary restraining order against work on the project, noting among other things that the size, scale and other specifications had not been finalized. Another hearing is scheduled for next month. And that's a wrap on this edition of the World Report, but do stay tuned to NewsX World for more international news and updates.